Are we live, Christy?
We are live and recording.
All right. So good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another in our series of Ironworkers Impact International Call to Safeties. My name is Pete Hayes. I'm the president and CEO of Red Cedar Steel. I'm honored to serve as your moderator today. A little different format today. We're joined by a distinguished panel of leaders who have guided the ironworkers through decades of challenges and achievements in safety and health. New General President Kevin Bryanton and General President Emeritus Eric Dean and Joe Hunt. Together, we'll reflect on their experiences, innovations, and leadership lessons in advancing safety and health, not only for ironworker members, but for employers as well. We're also going to highlight the Impact Program, talk about the 130 years of ironworkers and how safety has really fit in with that and grown, and a look ahead to their 2026 International Convention. As always, a little housekeeping notes here. There is a Q&A question box at the bottom bar. There you can see it on the screen. If you have a question for our participants, I ask that you would type it in there. I will be monitoring that and asking your questions as it's pertinent, but we try to get them answered as we go along rather than waiting till the end. If you'd like to speak amongst yourselves, there is a chat button. There are a few folks from Jeff and a few folks from Impact monitoring that as well. But that's really for speaking amongst yourselves rather than getting a question to our participants. So again, if you would use the Q&A box, and I'll do my absolute best to get your questions answered. So with that, thank you for that, and let's get started. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Wayne Cressup, the Director of Safety and Health for the Ironworkers. Take it away,
Hey,
Wayne.
thank you, Pete. Thanks, Pete, and good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on which part of the U.S. or Canada that you're in. Pete, first, I want to make sure that we thank you for everything that you've done. We've been offering this Call to Safety program for several years, and I only feel that it's right to take a moment to acknowledge Pete Hayes for his time, his leadership, and his ongoing contribution. He's dedicated a lot of himself to this initiative, not only as a signatory employer with Red Cedar Steel, but also through his service as an Impact trustee and a proud member of the Ironworkers Union. In his role over at Red Cedar Steel, he's the president and CEO, and he oversees the company's long-term strategy in all aspects of operations, while also leading business development efforts. Under his leadership at Red Cedar, Red Cedar has grown from a regional Wisconsin steel erector into a national organization with several offices around the country. So beyond his company leadership, Pete continues to give back to the industry, serving as a board member of Impact and as co-chair of the Heartland Regional Advisory Board. So Pete, on behalf of all of us, thank you for your leadership, your partnership, and your unwavering commitment to safety and health in the ironworkers community. We appreciate you serving as a moderator and a host for today's call. And now it is my pleasure and distinct honor to introduce our panel of leaders. We're going to do I'm going to do the bios here, and my goodness, this is really impressive. So to start off with, Joseph J. Hunt. Joe Hunt, book number 686434, a third-generation ironworker, native of St. Louis, Missouri, proud member of Local 396, initiated in 1962, where both his father and grandfather held union office. He served as local in numerous leadership roles, including business manager. In 1983, he was appointed general organizer and assigned to the international headquarters in Washington, D.C., serving as several senior support roles to the general officers. In 1990, he returned to St. Louis as president of the Ironworkers District Council of St. Louis. He was appointed general vice president in 1994, general treasurer in 1998, and general president effective February 1st of 2001. He served as general president until his retirement on January 31st, 2011. Joe, thank you very much for being on today. Next to introduce is Walter W. Wise. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, Walt is unable to join us in person today, but we appreciate that he still took the time to share his insights and perspectives in advance, and we'll be incorporating his comments throughout the session so that his voice and expertise remains part of today's conversation. But I still want to share Walter's bio as well. Walter Wise, book number 939089, born in Pocahontas, Virginia, and raised in California. Walt returned to Virginia in 1969 to study engineering at Virginia Tech. Walt began his ironworking career in 1973 and completed his apprenticeship with Local 697 in 1977. After working extensively in the field, both locally and as a boomer, he was elected recording secretary in 1981 and later business manager of Local 697 in 1989. Appointed general organizer in 1997, he went on to serve as president of the Mid-Atlantic District Council, general vice president, general treasurer, and general secretary. In 2011, he was unanimously elected general president. During his tenure, General President Wise made ironworker safety a top priority, launching initiatives such as the See Something, Say Something campaign, which contributed to a steady decline in ironworker fatalities. Next, we have Eric M. Dean. Eric Dean, book number 1051885. Started an ironworking career in 1980 as a fourth-generation ironworker. Completed his apprenticeship with Local 63 in Chicago and journeyed out in 1984. He worked throughout the Chicago area as a journeyman, foreman, and project superintendent, while also serving as apprentice instructor and certified welding instructor from 1989 to 1995. Deeply involved in union leadership, he held numerous local offices, being appointed general organizer in 1999 and assigned to the Department of Ornamental, Architectural, and Miscellaneous Metals. He later served as president of the Chicago and Vicinity District Council, general vice president, and general secretary. In 2015, Eric Dean was unanimously elected general president. Upon his retirement, he was elected general president emeritus effective January 1st, 2026. So Eric, thank you also for being here. Kevin P. Bryanton. Kevin Bryanton, book number 1141680, was born in San Diego, California, and is a second-generation ironworker. While working as an apprentice and completing a Bachelor of Education degree, Kevin joined Local 721, Toronto, Ontario in 1997. He completed his apprenticeship as an ironworker generalist and was recognized as Outstanding Apprentice of the Year. His career spans all facets of the trade with extensive experience in the industrial and ornamental sectors. Beginning in 1999, he served Local 721 as an instructor, apprenticeship coordinator, and in multiple elected offices, including president and business agent. He was appointed general organizer in 2009, general vice president in 2015, executive director of Canadian Affairs in 2019, and general secretary in 2024. Kevin Bryanton was unanimously elected general president effective January 1st, 2026. On behalf of the Department of Safety and Health, I'd like to congratulate Kevin on his recent appointment as general president. And Kevin, I now invite you to offer your opening remarks. Thank you again, Kevin.
Thank you, Wayne. And let me say it's an honor to be an ironworker and being part of this conversation today. And it's an even more humbling honor to be an ironworker that has the opportunity to serve as your general president. I just want to welcome everybody who's on the line today. I think we have a record number of people attending from all parts of our both countries. And just thanks for taking the time out to dedicate to safety and health from both the United States and Canada. I want to have a quick shout out to all the people on the line. We have attendees from the shops and having members from our manufacturing side. We've got, I guess I hear apprentices in class out there, along with their instructors. We have owners, we have superintendents, we have safety directors, we have business managers and business agents and contractors and their representatives on the line today. You all play a vital role in the strength and success of this organization. Just want to thank you for your contribution and your commitment to working to improve and enhance the safety of our family of ironworkers across the United States and Canada. Safety and health is a cornerstone of what makes our organization great. And it's one of the defining values that every single general president that's on the line today and held the office before us holds near and dear to their hearts as they work through each of their days. And you'll hear that as we work through the questions and answers today and the comments from our leadership over the last 30 years. So welcome again to all on the line. Thank you for attending, and thanks again to Wayne and Pete and all the safety team for putting this together. Appreciate your attendance.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. Again, I really appreciate your thoughtful and impacting opening remarks, and looking forward to working with you moving forward here in your new role. So at this point, we're going to get a little more out of some of the scripted information and kind of get into a little bit more of the question and answer session with our special panel. So together, Pete Hayes and I will explore, we'll get into the questions and answers. We'll explore some of the key safety challenges, some of the lessons learned, and some of the practical insights, while also addressing questions submitted by participants. So again, those that are online here, make sure you use that Q&A button and submit your questions. We'll be vetting those. Please keep it in the realm of good taste, and we certainly appreciate that. So we'll hopefully we can have some good questions and feedback for our panels. So to start off with, this is for Joe Hunt. Impact was initiated in 2003 under General President Joseph Hunt and Bill Brown, former CEO of Ben-Hur Construction. Joe, can you walk us through how Impact was formed?
Impact became an idea with Bill and I in the process of a strike, a 13-week strike that we had with our AGC and steel erectors. And at the conclusion of the strike, I sat down with Bill and I said, Bill, there's got to be a better way for us to solve our problems. And that was originally how we came up with the idea. We're one trade, our employers, we have to work together to make our buildings straight. So that's how it really got started. It got started over a strike between the iron workers and the steel erectors in St. Louis. Bill and I sat down and said, we've got to figure out a better way. We've got to work closer with our employers, develop trust, develop ways, because iron workers don't hire one man, our employers hire them. We've got to figure out ways to make ourselves more competitive, make our contractors more competitive, and in turn, make more man hours for our members. That was actually how we got started, was through a strike.
Wow. And everybody always kind of remembers Impact as being the drug testing program, but here it was more on the labor relations side associated with the strike.
Right.
Fantastic. Well, thank you. So, Joe, I had one other follow-up I wanted to hit you with, and this is kind of within the realm of the Ironworkers International, and that's within the Department of Safety and Health with the Ironworkers. Can you provide a little bit of a history going back to, I believe it was Steve Cooper was one of the first directors of safety and health with the International, and can you give us some insight on how far back that goes?
Well, Steve Cooper, when I came on staff in '83, was our first safety director. And he had just been appointed by President Lyons to be our safety director. He had held, and I don't know the exact position, but he held the position with the Department of Labor in safety issues, and that's how he became acquainted with the ironworkers and President Lyons on the work that he had done with the Department of Labor. And prior to that, the safety was always just another part of somebody's the apprentice program. There wasn't a specific department for safety, and Steve got that off the ground. And it's, as you can see, how it's progressed from Steve on up to what it is today. And I think that getting back to Impact, it was started over a dispute, but Impact gave us the resources that we needed to standardize our apprentice training, make sure that we had the resources to train our apprentice instructors. So we had a uniform safety training program, which went for both us and our employers, so that we were all on the same level, getting the same education and the same safety programs made available to our employers and our local unions and apprentices.
Fantastic. Thank you. So I'm going to open this up to the rest of our panelists here. So each of you led the ironworkers during distinct eras. And what was the greatest safety challenge you faced during your tenure, and how did you approach it? And Joe, do you want to start that off? We'll go the reverse cron here.
Sure. I think the biggest challenge that I had, starting when I started as an apprentice, we actually, there wasn't hardly any safety. We didn't have any tie-off. We didn't have any safety nets, and our employers were very reluctant to take on some of these safety things because they thought it would cut down on production. Refresh me on the question. I got talking, and I need to, so I get back on point.
It was the greatest safety challenge that you faced during your tenure.
Okay. Yeah, the safety challenge was to move our members and our employers to realize the importance of safety for the employers. They didn't have a certain mod, they couldn't bid on certain jobs. And we wanted to make sure that our members came home safe from the job. As you know, we're going to have 130 years. We were started, one of the main legs of the starting of the organization was safety. One of our first benefits that the International started was our death benefit. We had lost so many lives, and they didn't have any benefits, and the death benefit was to help bury our members who were killed on the job. So making our members and our contractors aware of the safety, how it would improve our industry and improve profitability in the industry.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joe. And I want to share Walt's response from President Emeritus Wise. Walt shared, we had to bring our losses out of the shadows. For years, our members considered fatalities on the job as part of being a macho ironworker. We had to bring that out into the open, so we started sending out fatality notices whenever we lost a member any place in the organization. Our union has no greater responsibility to our members than to make sure they get home safe every day. And I think our listeners today are going to hear a recurring theme with that. Joe hit it, Walter hit it, and Eric, I'll turn it over to you. What was your greatest safety and health challenge in your time as General President?
Well, serving as General President Wise's General Secretary when we rolled out See Something, Say Something, getting the buy-in both from the workforce and the employer that we could plan for safety, we started seeing tangible. President Wise used to say, if you could measure something, you could assess it, and then you could define it, and you could work towards a better goal. As I got in, carrying that on, mental health challenges became abundantly clear. I started going to contractor groups, CURT meetings, all different industries, and they talked about this mental health post-COVID, the things that were a challenge. So it wasn't just protecting, wearing hard hats and tying off. It was about the mental well-being of the members. And we sure used Impact to shine a light and raise the stigma that it was okay to ask for help, to guide people. When we have horrific accidents on the job, now what do we do, not only with the person who suffered the accident or God forbid the fatality, but I to witness that. And dealing with that in a coordinated response with our employers was probably my greatest challenge.
Thank you, Eric. And we know a lot of those numbers were disproportionate from the members that we lost on the job to those that were from suicide to the mental health side of it. And we really appreciate what you did in bringing that to light. Kevin, I know your tenure so far has been really brief, but would you like to share anything from your previous experiences you've come into this role?
Yeah, as a general president in 5 weeks, I've not had a whole lot other than just myself working through with fresh paint on my back, trying to get into that role as far as relatable history. But I would fully echo General President Emeritus Steen's comments about that being the hardest portion of my own role as a leader in the District Council of Ontario, and then as the Canadian director prior to coming to headquarters as the general secretary, and continuing through that. And it's a common theme that I'll have in later questions that are coming my way in terms of how to grapple and work with the mental health issues that are, running rampant through our members, not necessarily, but maybe our members' families that our members have to deal with on the job, and all the other issues that are outside of just the general kind of safety things that you think about when you go to work. So those are the hardest things to quantify, and then to get our members to consider to work with, and then try to help assist with, and as well our employers. So that is something I would definitely echo in terms of what General President Dean said.
Fantastic. Thank you, Kevin. And I think you kind of already hit on some of these things as far as what you consider the most significant safety advancement achieved under your leadership. So I think the mental health aspect was a really big one, but was there anything else under safety and health, Joe, that you would consider your most significant safety advancement that was achieved under your leadership?
Well, the biggest and most important advancement that I can comment on was when we established Impact, and we had the resources to train our instructors, we have training for our employers, just so that everybody was aware of the safety problems and how it affected the industry. And I'd just like to comment one thing on this. When I was an agent and when I was an officer in the international, the mental health side of it was kind of ignored. If I can say that one of the biggest steps that we've made, I know it's a little off the line of safety, but it's been one of the biggest, most improvements for our members that I think that has come along a long time with the awareness and what the international Impact and our employers are doing for that segment of our members.
So I have a unique answer to that question, Wayne. Not so much as my tenure as general president. Under President Emeritus Hunt, he commissioned Walt to create a data set for the apprenticeship tracking system. Walt started the configuring and the programming, and then I became general secretary and following President Emeritus Wise's lead, and delivering a QR code with a data set that could deliver our training, our certification, and our skill sets all in one consolidated base was a collaboration, almost like a relay. Started under President Hunt, finished under President Wise, and then I got to bring it to fruition. You'd almost say that programming is obsolete given the advancement of computer software. But we used to talk about how good we were, but we could never quantify that to the employer. Now we can dispatch employees, we can send out their entire certification skill sets. So when we tell the employer, we're going to send you a qualified, highly qualified person, a safe, competent person, we can back it up with data on when they took their courses, when those certifications were complete. And it was a joint collaboration that's ongoing today. And then it requires the training community to input that data in an ongoing manner. All my files and records sit in a metal cabinet back in my school. I look at my son's training regimen as a 5th generation iron worker, and it's unbelievable, his skill sets, when you can validate them and see them on paper. And then the contractor and the general contractors are true believers that we're sending out a real deal iron worker.
Fantastic. And that was always something, even, regardless of which side, I still get phone calls looking for, training records or different things, related to especially on the safety and health side, whether it's mobile elevated work platforms or scaffolding or whatever the items that iron worker needs to have. And the system that you are heavily involved in makes it just so much easier for everybody to be able to check that and see it right off the bat. So thank you. One I did want to share.
Just if I could add one more thing, Wayne. Yep. President Wise started Impact, talked about resources. President Hunt talked about resources. President Wise, we passed a referendum that through impact, you could backfill all those records for the incumbent members so that we could fill that data set. So those are things that, as fast as we're changing officers and leaders, not everyone knows that exists, but we had impact grants to actually pay for old dog ironworkers to get their data entered into the computer. We didn't go as necessarily far back, but it's something that if you're not doing it, I implore the training coordinators, anyone on a JATC, we got to back up all the training we do so that we can quantify it. And then that's a measurable data set for us.
Say, Wayne, this is Pete. We've had some questions come in here. I think a couple of them are pertinent to the moment here. The latest one talks about expanding mental health and resources from the international. That might be something you could touch on. I know our last call, we specifically had at least 4 groups out there that we're working with to provide different services through impact regarding mental health. Can you touch on some of that? I know that's something you worked on really hard on our last call.
Sure. So at Pete's, we did back in November last year, we did a wellness strategies for wellness to get through the holidays webinar. And what we did is we utilized the different organizations that have had relationships with the ironworkers and impact over the last several years, especially when it comes to that aspect. And we ended up with 5 different organizations, whether it was locally, regionally, or internationally, that we've had exposure to. And there's probably more that we don't even know about, but those were ones that we were aware of. And so we had folks on there that from Credible Mind, we have online now through the Ironworkers and Impact, we have a Credible Mind website that allows members, their families, our signatory employers, their families to go in and kind of do their own self-assessment. It's anonymous, confidential. There's no records kept with it, and they can actually go in and look at different things, whether it's having trouble sleeping at night or other personal issues, and they can do their own self-assessment with it. And then we had QPR Institute on to talk about helping to try to help talk to somebody. We've worked really hard on reducing the stigma related to mental health, and QPR kind of helps take that next step, which is having that difficult conversation. And so part of that training was being able to question, persuade, and refer someone to professional help. And then we had Bert Royer was on to talk about the and I'm going to get it wrong, Kevin. It's the Working Mind. I think I got it, President.
You got it right.
The Working Mind up in Canada. The Canadians have been very progressive in putting a lot of training together under the Working Mind program, and so Bert shared some information on that. And then we also had Charlie Health, which is actually based in St. Louis. They do some pretty unique things where they can actually do remote or a distance type of interventions, and it's actually tied to the different local unions' health and welfare plan to their health insurance, and so they're recognized in about 40 different states. So that was a pretty unique aspect of what Charlie Health brings to the table. And then last, we had Modern Assistance out of Massachusetts, and they've been very helpful for us. Not just on this aspect, dealing with the mental health, but also post-incident or other things that come up that we have to deal with. So there was those different organizations. And I know, like I said, there's many more out there, but those were the ones that we've had a lot of exposure to. And if you're at the Impact Conference here in a couple of weeks, there's going to be some sessions that'll be dedicated to that. And I would hope that folks take some time to check those out.
All right. The next question, and it's really kind of flows right into the last. We've been asked for new General President Kevin Bryanton. Kevin, what do you see as where you want to see safety go in the future as you lead this next generation of ironworkers?
That question came from the audience?
It did. Yes.
Well, that's
sure
good.
did.
I'm just going to flip to where that question is going to come from Wayne here later on.
Yeah, it's basically the same question. I really enjoy it. So,
it's looking ahead. Okay, it was more of a switch of gears from safety of just you arrive at the job site, you exit your car, you go to the shack, and then safety begins, to safety as more of a holistic with a W, like the whole of the iron workers coming to that job on that day and where they're at and their fitness for work, not necessarily just on any kind of thing that was physical, but also in terms of where they're at mental health wise, and that evolution to include that. And so it's a longer term objective of which we don't have all the tools at hand. Wayne talked about some of the things that we're working with just to incorporate that into the lives of the day-to-day work of the iron worker and the iron worker safety professional and the business manager potentially and the employer contractor in terms of managing and continuing to try to embrace that. But it's just it's something we have to take into account, because although somebody shows up and they're sober, they're on time, they have all their PPE, they have their lunch, they have nothing physical impairment wise in terms of their what happened to them on the weekend with their knees or their elbows or anything like that. They're ready to go to work. They may have a child who's at home who's struggling, or their spouse is struggling, and so that becomes part of the white noise that they're carrying into that job space, even though they have all those things I just mentioned ready to go to work. And then, as you know, our jobs are very tricky and sometimes in dangerous places, and you have to be on 100% of the time. But to negotiate that, you can't do it with all the potential white noise of whatever it is that's hogging up your RAM, and it can create an accident. And then our member, even though they were fully safe and ready to go to work, somehow gets injured. And so there's got to be a way for us to try to assess that and work it in. I think evolutionary, that's what I was thinking in terms of, Wayne had that teed up as a question later on near the end there, in terms of what I see as the future from my perspective. And our theme exiting this meeting and talking about the convention is forging our future, strength beyond steel. And I can't think of for any way for us to achieve that without taking care of our members every day, and to banking on the people and having them, get home the same way they showed up. And so to the extent that mental health is now part of that world, that's what I see the kind of evolution and my focus as far as safety going forward, because we do every great thing that we can, but that's something that's just in the background of everywhere we seem to go. So it's a very long answer to that question. So.
No, that's great, Kevin. Thank you. I wanted to share quickly in my 10 years for the contractors out there on the impact board, the time and energies and dollars that we can spend on safety continues to grow. It's something we spend an enormous amount of our time on. I think everyone agrees it is the most important topic. And I can think of some of the initiatives launched in those 10 years, the maternity leave program, the off-the-job accident program, or all these new initiatives that have been launched regarding mental health. And for the person that asked that question, please reach out to anybody on the safety team with impact for those reasons. The chips we give out for the phone number if you're in need, but I'm proud of that time and energies we spent on that, and I know we're going to continue to keep it first and foremost as we move forward. So, yeah.
And Pete, to that point, we're going to send out in the post-event, we'll send out the link that we did to the November 5th webinar that has the information on it, and they can view that. There's a YouTube link, and we can also put that other information out. And I think it's important to also note, with all of the leadership that we have here, and even with President Emeritus Wise, is the fact that, we talk about this maybe in a little bit of a general term, but these people that we're talking about, our iron workers, our brothers and sisters, they all have faces, they all have names, they're a human being. And it's easy to kind of forget about that. And we took the time to read each of our leadership's book number, and that's our identity as an iron worker. But it's also, again, every one of those members that we have that we lose has their own identity, their family. and others that are impacted when something happens, whether it's on or off the job. And I can't say enough, just from the leadership, how much they take that so personally, that we want to make sure that everybody goes home safe and whole every night, and they actually live that. So again, gentlemen, I really appreciate your leadership with that. Pete, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, nothing new in the Q&A box, but I think we can move along here with kind of where we were at. Kevin, sorry I jumped that up on you there.
Not a problem.
So during your years working in the field on the tools, which you all did, and we all have that in our past, was there a particular experience that made you think we're getting safety right? And are we making progress? So, Joe, any thoughts along that line?
My years in the field, as I said, I started in '62, and then I was elected in '72 as business manager. So I only worked a short period of time before I was elected business manager. So I didn't see a lot of improvements in the field while I was working. But becoming business agent, I worked on those things that I observed and witnessed when I was working with my tools to improve. And it was the reluctance of, as Eric said, the macho feeling that iron workers have, because just bringing in the nets and bringing in tying off, arguing with our contractors that tying off and nets didn't slow up productivity, increase productivity. And the use of mechanical equipment like JLGs and lifting platforms. A steel erector will look at you, ever gonna set iron out of a basket? Now, if it's a 1 or 2 story job, that's all they use. And they can set more iron out of the basket safer and more secure than what we did before when we were hanging up there by our tails, running around on board joists, wiggling and wobbling. So I think those are some of the changes that I started my position as a business manager, business agent up through the international to change the culture of the iron workers and our employers, and a big impact. When we talked about resources just a little bit. We got the resources to really do the things and do the training and get the message out to all of the locals, so everybody was on the same plane, knew what the problems were, worked to solve them. And I think Impact was a major tool for us to create and help solve these problems.
Eric?
My time spent in the field, there was safety measures available. Turns out you'd be scared to death if you used the butterfly rope grab that they issued you back in the day. They didn't have horses, they had belts, which today is a big no-no because of your ability to spill out. So as I evolved from the field to where I see the safety equipment, the means and method, and our standard operating procedure, I hearken back to just one simple thing. We used to put a walking steward dedicated towards safety in the collective bargaining agreement, and the contractors hated that as a non-working person. And presently, most general insist on one amount of employees on the job, and there's no argument about it. They want that person not lifting, not hoisting, not working, but just looking after and looking ahead to make sure that the workforce is the same. So that buy-in has come an evolution over time, from Joe's time through Walt's time, my time, and Kevin's time going forward. Is the ironworkers are readily accepting the means and methods available. The general contractors have more stringent rules on certain jobs than others. But I saw a Panasonic battery plant be built most recently in local 10's jurisdiction in Kansas, And they set the equivalent of a Sears Tower on its side, all out of JLG baskets in a record amount of time with a minimal amount of incidents or injuries. And, the ironworkers are delivering and doing what's necessary to make sure the ironworker contractors' employees are going home and our members are going home intact. And, we can argue all about how it's not like it was in the old days. I can tell you, I'm really proud of our fatality rate. I won't be happy until it's at zero, but I compare where it was when I was a rank and file member working to where it got in my leadership to where it is today. We got to just keep on. We're going to hit zero.
Can I add one thing? One of the challenges that I had, and I think we've overcome that, is if you go on a major project and have responsible owners, they didn't want to have any safety problems, and the safety on those jobs was great. The same contractor, you'd go down the street to a little beam bar joist 2-story job, and you wouldn't know you were working for the same company with the safety. I think we've overcome that where the safety that was required on major projects where owners, you didn't work on it if you had an accident, transferred over to these small mom and pop jobs. And that's been a big benefit because that's where many of our accidents happened.
I appreciate you sharing that, Joe, because that has helped evolve the safety and health culture within the ironworkers, is that a lot of our signatory employers simply took that approach that if that's what the owner demanded on that big job, then that's what their company policy is going to be throughout. So why have to do it different for every job that you go to? Let's just keep it the same, and it makes it easier for them to be able to manage it. And so Walt shared something that he was looking back in the 1910s, and he noted that 1% of the iron workers, were expected to die back at that time on the job. And he said if you compared that to today's numbers, based on the numbers, that'd be over 1,000 iron workers a year that you would lose. So it was an interesting perspective. And I wanted to share one other thing that Walt shared with us, and that was, he mentioned the see something and say something, but he also noted that you're your brothers and sisters' keeper. And if you're not willing to say something to them on the job when they are being unsafe, what are you going to say to their loved ones? And I thought that was a really powerful statement from Walt, and I'm grateful that he shared that.
Wayne, we had another question come in here. I think it's really more for you, but it's someone asking, are there any programs for ironworker families whose husband or father, the member, suffer with mental health and or suicide? I know that answer is yes. Is there a way you can let the audience know where they can access some of the things the safety department's doing, some of the programs you just spoke about earlier? How do they actually get that information and how they can reach out?
Or if they don't want to reach out through their local, I would encourage them to do that. I'm sure their local has some resources, and if not, they can reach out to the safety and health department. And I'll also entertain comments from our leadership. Kevin, you may have some other things that you might want to mention on that as well.
Yeah, the Credible Mind program, it's kind of an internal use and assessment, and then get some direction and or help in terms of directing you somewhere, is available to every single person in that member's family. So it's not specific in terms of getting on there and getting that assistance over the phone. And that over the phone kind of assistance will then hopefully help you direct back to your individualized health and welfare plan to see what you have in the mix of local coverage in your area. But that's open to every single buddy that was mentioned in that kind of, I think the question asked for a member's wife's or spouse's kids. That Credible Mind, or sorry, yeah, it's Credible Mind one. I'm not getting them confused anyway. That's the U.S. one that Impact is doing.
That's correct.
Every single member of that family. So.
And I'll also mention the New England District Council was piloting a program with some peer training and trying to help reach out to folks as well. So from more of a peer-to-peer level, and getting some of our ironworkers trained again to be able to have those difficult conversations with other members and kind of being able to help provide some additional support. And sometimes it's easier to hear that from a brother or sister in the field that might have some feelings on that versus hearing it from somebody else or a clinician or something like that. So there are several different resources available, and it's just knowing where to go. One of the things that we also put together from our November call was about a 4-page document that had different types of mental health resources, and we'll make sure we include that as part of this recording when we send it out to all the folks that have registered for this. So we'll share that information too. Thank you, Pete. I've kind of lost my place a little bit here from bouncing around. So I think that Pete, did you hit the leadership and change as far as the difficult decisions?
No, we haven't gone there yet. I will say while you're doing that, finding that next where you want to go with that, Kevin, we are getting more comments from Canada than we've ever had before. I think your Canadian citizenship is getting a lot of answers from up there, but a lot of good comments about what's being done in Canada and Ontario, and some good kudos that came out of your answers. So we appreciate the continued growth of this call, especially from our brothers to the north.
Merci
Brothers
beaucoup.
and sisters.
So the next question that I had that I wanted to get to was based on leadership and change. And so this is to everyone here. Leading a large union comes with difficult decisions. Can each of you share an example where safety had to be prioritized even in the face of resistance? Did anybody want to jump on that one first?
Well, I will tell you what, I had a meeting. This is when I was president of my district council with Alberisi Construction Company, one of our major employers. And he was going over safety numbers between us, and believe this or not, the Boilermakers, that our safety records were worse than, and if we didn't start changing our attitude, our work habits and safety habits, then he was going to start assigning more work to the Boilermakers. So, it was talking about the challenge. The challenge for me at the time as president of the council, and of course Alberisi worked in every one of our local unions, was to go out and address those local unions and tell them, hey, you're gonna have to wake up. You're gonna have to work safe. It's only good not just for you and your families, but it's for our livelihood that we will be able to get more man hours, or we're going to lose it. It's going to be assigned to somebody else. So that was one particular challenge. And as I said before, the challenge of having uniform safety rules, not just on a major job, and working for the same contractor and going out and have no safety, that everything would be uniform, talking to our contractors and talking to our members. We have one set of rules for safety, and that's what we're going to follow on every job.
Fantastic. Thank you.
All right,
Joe.
you ready?
Go for it.
You're ready for my greatest challenge, Wayne? The new hard hats. That's probably my greatest challenge. Ironworkers are endeared to their habitual look, style, and more general contractors are requiring a change in safety equipment. And the ironworkers love the MSA bridge hat. They love their fiber shield, fiberglass helmets, and they don't want to be told what to wear. In our Constitution, it clearly mandates that safety equipment is the responsibility of the contractor. Contractor has to adhere to the general contractor. So in the face of resistance, I would tell you that was probably my greatest challenge of my 10-year time is, and I hate to tell you, but if macho ironworkers want, don't want to work with the safety equipment that's mandated, then they can get a dispatch to another job, but they can't work there. And that was my answer is I'm going to back the employer. I'm going to back the general contractor because we're not going to start providing lanyards or harnesses on ourselves. That's what the open shop does. Our contractors provide us the safety equipment that's required on the job site. Guys didn't like that answer and they felt like I wasn't fighting for them. But in the end, I believe it's our responsibility to work with the employer on the safety equipment provided. And that was when I read the script, I said, I don't have to go any further. That's my toughest challenge.
And if you weren't going to bring it up, Eric, I was going to ask it as a follow-up. So I'm glad that you jumped right on that one because yeah, we know
How to jump on a grenade.
Thank you. President Emeritus Wise, he shared that we still have an issue with contractors who put less priority on safety, hooking up with members who also put less priority on safety, and that can lead to accidents. Aside from the obvious personal losses, one fatality has an enormous cost associated with it and potentially can put a company out of business. So that's what makes safety so important. And I appreciated what President Emeritus Wise had to share because he also tied a little bit of the economics that kind of resonates with some of our employers. But again, it's, nobody puts a dollar sign on a human life. And so I can see where, again, the evolution from that to now fighting over personal protective equipment and these type 2 helmets and educating our members a little bit on the why with that. And President Dean helped back me up on that when we started talking about the type 2s, that unfortunately a lot of the general contractors that were pushing these requirements on their job sites said, you shall, you will, you must wear these. But they didn't explain the why with it. What was the benefit? Why were we doing it and making that change? And to that point, it was a big culture shift for our membership, and we still have some folks that challenge it. But we've been working as products are evolving, trying to help make this better and a little easier transition for our members in supporting the industry. Kevin, did you have anything you wanted to add relating to those challenges?
Yeah, I know as general president, it's only been 5 weeks and I haven't had any, but as general secretary, I did have to work with General President Dean through some of the implementations of the hard hat. And it was a challenge on the secretary's office too, for all the same reasons. But I will say though, I started in 86 on permanent and joined in 87. And in that time, there was very, very little for the fall arrest safety equipment that we now know as part of our collective muscle memory every time you go to a job. And the implementation of that in Ontario in 91, 92 in terms of the first training, and then 1993 in terms of, okay, now it's mandatory and you have to wear those. And it hadn't been in our contract yet, so we ended up having to buy them ourselves. It was a nightmare, and then it got put in the contract. And then the fighting over that time frame where people just didn't want to use it and they didn't want to uptake gets in their way, it's going to be more dangerous, et cetera. That was tough to deal with, I'm sure, as any leader at the time. I was working through it, and a younger man, and had my kids near the end of that, and then it became much more important to me than it did at the beginning. But the challenges were tough in that time frame, I know, for all of the both contractors and the leaders there, for all the issues that came up over the very beginnings of fall arrest implementation. So.
Kevin, you mentioned, back in the 90s, and that reminds me of something that I wanted to also throw out. And I know we had talked about it previously, and that was the involvement of the ironworkers in the Subpart R Negotiated Rulemaking Advisory Committee, and which was known as CENRAC. And at that time, there was a big push. Obviously, there was not a lot in the federal OSHA standards. And Joe, you were heavily involved in that. So was there anything you'd like to add related to CENRAC and how that's evolved from then, and to what Kevin's point, where we didn't have a lot of those kinds of things and we fought that to where we are, and I'll let Eric hit on how it's evolved to where we get to today. So
I can only add one thing. I was in a meeting with Bill Brown, and there was a controversy, and we were supporting the steel erectors, and it was on, they were opposed to the 8 or 10 foot tie off, and we supported our steel erectors. And as I commented to Bill, was a number of years later, that we were on the wrong side of not supporting a 10-foot tie-off rule. And Bill had to agree with me that we were, but we supported our employers because they said it was cut down on productivity and cost more. But as history evolved, both Bill and I realized that we were on the wrong side of that because of the safety and what it meant for our members to be tied off and be made safe.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that, Joe. Thank you. Eric, I know things have evolved a lot, and you even mentioned it, with the monkey tails and the belts and everything, and coming up to where things are now. When you look at fall arrest equipment, I would venture to guess that probably as we started to see things shift from we had back in, when the SENRAC, when Subpart R came out in 2001, with some of those trigger heights, that most of the general contractors have now instituted much more stringent trigger heights that have exceeded those federal OSHA minimums. And can you share any insight on that?
As a rank and file iron worker, I remember when SENRAC got approved and Steel Erection negotiated advisory rulemaking committee is what I believe that acronym stands for. And it liberalized steel erection with a written document, formal plan. But that was a variant that wasn't the rule. A contractor had to have the written plan and do that. As things evolved and I moved my way up through leadership, President Wise assigned me as General Secretary, go meet with OSHA. And the open shop started subverting the OSHA regulations, and they went to a 2 lanyard system, 100% tie off. One had to be tied off at all times. And then they stopped putting in nets. They stopped planking off floors. And they were setting 7 floors of open iron. And I went with General Treasurer McHugh, myself as General Secretary, and then later as I became president with various people in the Department of Labor. And we talked about, the tightly decked and planking floors were a rescue platform in steel erection. And it didn't mean that we didn't want to tie off, but it stopped an errant nut or washer from falling on workmen below. Their answer was, well, no one's allowed to work below. Given compressed schedules of jobs, people are always working below and they're scurrying around like ants. And I dared them to let me hang them in a harness on the 7th floor with no visible way to get them off of the iron. And they just kind of stared at me. And then we got the greatest Secretary of Labor in my tenure, and Marty Walsh. And he came from the building trades and he kind of understood us and he got them to listen to us. But as fast as he came, he left. We had a great relationship with Secretary Sue, but you can't get rid of the bureaucrats in government. And sometimes they had wonky stuff, and the open shop was always whispering in their ear that they shouldn't have to do what the union was promoting. Yeah. And so for me, I've seen it evolve, but what it is we don't want our members falling. We do want them tied off, but the steel erection standards are for other reasons, like rescuing a worker who has fallen and needs to be retrieved from a lanyard, that stop the fall protract. The other part that I've seen that's really been tough is we have retractables that are for vertical, and they're using them in a horizontal application. And the contractor sends them out, thinks it's okay. And the workmen are just knowingly using a vertical retractable lifeline in a horizontal application, and they're breaking them over sharp edges. And we got to be smarter than that. We got to use the equipment it was designed to be used for. So sorry to wander all over there, but that's my time and tenure from the field to leadership of the struggle of that and regulation. And I'm sure, I remember we went to anchor bolts, and I remember going north of the border and realizing we had to fight for 4 anchor bolts on every column because not every rule in the United States applied to every rule, and we wanted to protect our members on both sides of the border.
Thank you. That fantastic, Eric. Thank you. I think that was one of the things, I guess, in some ways we're blessed in the United States, where we have federal OSHA and state plan OSHA states that kind of follow along what the Fed OSHA has. And Kevin, up in Canada, between the provinces and the territories, I don't know if there's a whole lot of consistency when it comes to their enforcement or regulation with a lot of the safety and health. Anything you wanted to just mention on that?
They all came around the same time in the provinces. Can't say I have no knowledge of the territories as to what happened up there, is happening up there in terms of the occupational health and safety. But stateside and Canada, I think, what was OSHA, 72, 73, 74?
Yeah, but 1970, and then it went in 71.
That's when everything was kind of happening in Canada too. And the provincial has the state equivalent as a province. It has jurisdiction over both the labor laws and occupational health and safety in terms of that development. And so in my province in Ontario, became law in 1974, has been there since. And across the country, they're very similar. There's federal standards on manufacturing and everything that goes with the safety portion of the equipment that we use that provinces have to obey and then, tout the laws on their manufacture. But everybody in each province has a very similar kind of occupational health and safety standard for, like, it's not 12 feet in one province, 10 in another, 3 in another. They're generally, 3 meters across the board everywhere as best practices have evolved. So even though it's 8 different lower provinces, 1 up north and a couple territories, they're all fairly similar in terms of that common North American kind of way of looking. I mean, the United States and Canada as the safety laws that are equivalent to all Americans under OSHA.
Fantastic. Thank you. Pete, I think we had a couple of more questions that had come in. And while Pete's digging through those, I wanted to extend the offer that we have some apprentices who are watching with their apprenticeship classes, and I wanted to extend the offer to them as our leaders of the future. If they had any questions for our general presidents to kindly work with your instructor there and submit those questions as well. Pete, anything else that's come in?
Yes, we've had several pertaining to the hard hat that I think have been answered as we've gone along, right? The new type hard hat. Our most recent question, though, and I think it feeds into what General President Wise's comments about different levels of contractors. Basically says, this person has written, and I'm going to read it as they wrote it. As the safety supervisor, I've noticed on job sites, some are great in safety and some just don't care. And it tends to be with what the GCs concentrate on. They ask, he feels it's becoming a real problem. The question is this: how do you bridge the gap? And I think they want to hear this from the union leadership side. When safety, what we're teaching the apprentices and people at the hall is a certain level, and that is the 6-foot tie off and safety. When they go out to a job site where the contractor they're working for, in their words, doesn't care, how would you tell members to deal with that issue?
You want to
So-
answer that, Eric?
Kevin, I'll let you go first.
Oh, from our perspective, yeah, just you have a right to refuse unsafe work at the end of every moment of any time you're engaging in that. And if there is something that is put in your way as safety or like director guy, apprentice guy, journey woman out there, any time you're at any portion of any job anywhere, then exercise that, because at the end of the day, you got to go home in the same way that you showed up. And if you're with a contractor who just doesn't have it together and you know that it's not safe work for you to undertake with what equipment they have, then refuse it. So, I mean, it's a wide direction in terms of what I would say to any member, but it came from a safety supervisor as to how we manage that. And as a business agent and as a district council president, there's a vast diaspora of the difference of what that is in terms of the ability to have capacity for the Cadillac stuff in the safety world versus, meeting the bare minimum and then using that beyond what it's really supposed to be used for. And so we work to maintain the bare minimum so that it's used properly. And if they don't have that equipment, you can't do the work, then don't do the work. And that's the union should get your back where and when that's the case. And you're actually not trying to use the contract not to do work, but actually refusing unsafe work. And I always did with anybody I represented at the business agent level, and I'll continue to do so as a general president. So
I can say some, just to carry on what Kevin said. In those cases, yeah, I know many men don't want to say anything. They're worried about their job. They say something, they're going to get fired. You got a business agent. You've got a steward. Tell your steward, get the business agent to come out to the hall, meet the men in the shanty, have them all there. Tell them, hey, tell them where the bear shits, and we're gonna work safe. I don't want you, if these guys bring up some safety stuff, to be firing them. You're going to be looking down my throat. I'm going to be looking down yours. I think it takes some of that personal thing for that agent to go out there and let that foreman and let those men know what we expect.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, call the hall, but that's why they get paid, is to represent the members and provide consistency to enforce the collective bargaining agreement. Whatever the collective bargaining agreement, it's not so much what we're training in school. What does the collective bargaining agreement say? And if there's somebody that's not following a collective agreement, then that's why you have union representatives.
Fantastic. Well, I think that actually just kind of it dovetails right into the next question that I was going to ask was basically on the collaboration with employers. And that's, that it's noted that safety is a shared responsibility. So how has collaboration between the union leadership and signatory employers evolved over time? And I think Joe hit a lot of that with that chain of command and making those calls. But have you noticed anything else as part of that evolution?
I'll take this question if you don't mind. I'll start anyway.
Please.
I've been an impact trustee since the day President Wise put it on. I was in charge of the region in Chicago, first coupled up with Michigan, later up with St. Louis as it exists today. The frequent collaboration and meeting of the RABs allow like-minded employers and union leaders to get together and discuss ongoing issues. So it's not a collectively bargained issue, but an ongoing industry stakeholder issue. And one of the things we've done is take the horns off our head and not think there's an 800-pound gorilla calling you only when there's a problem on the job, but addressing those things and in a real-time manner. And I believe the evolution of impact, it's not meeting once a year at the annual meeting. It's those regional meetings and the ability of the contractors and the union leaders being able to discuss things and solve them and not let things, one, fester, and then address them real time. And they know when someone's calling, they know they're a real deal consequence and that they don't call just for the sake of calling because the members got to be in their bonnet. It's a real issue that needs to be addressed.
So for the contractors on the call, Eric, is there how can they get more involved in impact?
That's a constant evolution for impact. When I was the president, Kevin Hilton, as the CEO, used to ask the regionals to constantly engage the non-engaged employers. The ones that volunteer and attend everything are the habitual people that raise their hand, they volunteer, the employers donate their time. There's an outreach, and it's like being a disciple. You got to go spread the good word about the work. And many times they're going, I didn't know they do that. Oh, I don't have time for that. And I say sometimes you don't have time not to participate, do those things, but having good, insightful meetings on a regional basis will get the local employers that don't necessarily participate on a large scale or work in multiple markets. There's room for mom and pop bread and butter employers, along with the biggest multi-market employers and multi-craft employers.
I'd like to add one thing. I do believe that we need to have more support from our employers. We have great employers that participate, but we need them to spread the word to their other friends who are running companies, the benefits that we have. I'll tell you, we have so many steel erectors and rebar contractors that don't have any idea of the benefits that they get from impact. And that's a crying shame. We need to, we spread the information to our members. Our employers, our association members need to spread the same word to their members. If they think the program's worth a damn, then they should be doing the same thing. That's all.
I appreciate you sharing that. The people that take advantage of it, right? Those that take
Pete,
advantage.
what do you have to say about that?
Yeah, please.
So I was going to step in here. That is a conversation I have on a regular basis with fellow contractors. I've been on the board 10 years. I was lucky enough, and I believe it was 2002, to have gone to one of the informational meetings when I was still pretty wet behind the ears a long time ago. It is a constant issue that I work with, that I recently had a contractor tell me, well, I don't want to do the drug testing. It's mind-boggling to me that they still believe that's really what impact is all about. I think it's just something we have to continue to beat the drum. I'd love to, like Eric said, the contractors that participate, what we get back is tenfold. There's no question that my company has benefited from all these programs, and I have them at my fingertips. I know about it. So I think it's just continuing to educate contractors, hopefully getting them to open their eyes, but it's probably always going to be an issue. But I really urge those that can come to the conference, which again, it's coming up here soon in a few weeks in Las Vegas. The benefits you get there, it's eye-opening, the people you meet, the things that go on there. Of course, I hear all the time, well, I'm so bogged down day to day. I understand that. I think the other thing that could really help that is getting the locals, and not that they don't, but even more that is brought up at collective bargaining time, those kind of issues to get, and I don't know that I have the answer, but continue to beat the drum of this is the greatest benefit to being signatory. While there's many, impact is one of the best benefits there is. In advancing your company, the training we offer, all the things for contractors. So I agree, it continues to be an issue. I wish I had the perfect answer, but I think it's just continuing to beat the drum that is impact, so that people understand all the benefits that are there for them. Hey, I think there was a question we had missed that I really would like to ask and kind of dig deep into. The question is, what advice would you give to future leaders about balancing operational pressures with the responsibility to protect members? And I want to dig deep into the three words there: balancing operational pressures. As we continue to work on it, we discussed this before the call started, these projects where it's 610s, nonstop work. We are seeing members that are physically, mentally, and spiritually getting wore out. I've instituted no Sundays unless I personally approve it across the company. No more than 13 days in a row, even if I approve a Sunday to do that. But I'm really, really concerned, and it just seems to grow. The data centers, the chip plants, all these projects, they just keep accelerating the schedules, demanding more of the body. And I see iron workers that are, like I said, not just physically wore out, they're mentally and even spiritually wore out, which I think leads to the mental health issues as well. So that's really the question. What do you give to the up and coming members that are going to end up in leadership, not just at the union, but many of them go into foreman, field superintendent, project manager, and lead these companies?
Mr. President, I'll let you go first.
That's a tough one. I was looking at that one from a couple different perspectives in terms of how that question could have gone. From the perspective of the business agent side of my history, I would advise the business agents where they have their members there and somebody's going to potentially sacrifice their health and safety because of those pressures to say, you know what, protect our people above all else. It isn't an operational directive that should ever sacrifice that objective, ever, right? Ever, in terms of what you do to represent our members. From the member's perspective, who's trying to deal with all of that, that's a different answer to the same kind of question, read differently. And that's the same kind of conversations we have with our leadership anytime we put on any continuing training here at headquarters and beyond, is that all this stuff we're trying to assist you with, at the end of the day, you need to take care of yourself amongst all of that. And, you know, we put on training for our business agents, new full-time salaried officers at local unions every year. We do business manager training. We do additional training. And in every single point of that, we just let them know that they need to self-check in once in a while. And we do some specific training just on that in terms of managing that operational pressure of being a leader within our organization, not as a contractor. I can't really speak to that. That's more for you, Pete, but just balancing all that in your own health and safety and your ability to do the job, and having regular check-ins to make sure that you're doing okay your own bad self with all of the pressures that come your way. And for every member we got working on the jobs that have those really can get dangerous kind of schedules where you're working 21 and 10 or 21 and 7 out of town, have to fly back home. That happens a lot in Canada. How you manage your family that way. At the end of the day, you really, you know, everything you work for is about that family. So make sure that you're not putting your own health and safety in danger just by the schedule to be able to maintain that. So kind of wandering comments on that question, but it's a kind of a tough question to bridge the health and safety responsibilities of both labor and management on that. But that's kind of my thoughts from the labor side perspective.
During my time and tenure as a leader of the union, I got to meet not only with many of our fair signatory employers, but a lot of the owner and owner community. And I would constantly remind them that the 7-day-a-week compressed work schedules, I know you want to produce product as fast as humanly possible, but there is human component to these job sites, and safety gets compromised with compressed schedules, with accelerated schedules. And it's all about dollars and cents today. They want to build factories in record time. Seems like we've gone away from shift work, which at least allows a body to rest a little bit and can extend the workday, into these unrealistic work schedules. So I was never afraid to say, I don't think there should be 7-day-a-week work schedules. And they told me, yeah, but your members like it. Well, they like it when they're out of town to make as much money as a short period of time as possible, but not if you're comprising safety, because there's only so much water in the well. And there's only so much you can give in an 8-hour workday and a 10-hour workday and a 12-hour workday before fatigue sets in and before compromised decisions occur. So for me, you know, I'm worried about, like Kevin is, the union leadership burning out and not knowing when to say when. But the rank and file members that run jobs can get burned out. And the everyday guy, a man or woman that works on a job site, there's only so much the body will endure. And so we got to just make sure we continue to fight for common sense when it comes to that schedules. So Pete, love the fact, you know, I know you're a solid guy. I deal with you all the time, that you don't allow work on Sundays. You're singing my song that I sing on a regular basis. But this thing, it runs all the way up from the rank and file member to the leader. And we put too much stress on ourselves. And sometimes we don't know when to take some work-life balance measures in order to be able to, you know, I see guys that, you know, they want to go from one overtime job to another. And they're compromising their health and their safety to sacrifice for wages. And sometimes something's got to give, you know, and the body sometimes has to give, or the mind's going to give. So just, and then I've been promoting on my way out the door. We used to worry about safety from the job shack at the start of the day to the end of the day, as a union brother or sister, we got to worry about safety 24 hours a day. We got to call people when they're home and when we haven't heard from them in a while, or somebody who's laid out from an injury, and make sure that they're okay in mind and body. Okay. That's just something I never stop being a good union brother or sister.
Amen.
Hey, Pete, what do you think? What are our contractors saying, you as a subcontractor or our general contractors, when they're meeting with their owners and their owners are telling them and laying out these schedules? Either you work the schedule or you don't get the job. So what do? You work the schedule. So, our problem, we'll work as many, and actually, when Eric said the thing, well, they made a comment, our men like to work the overtime. The small of our total membership, it's a small number of our membership that follow these overtime jobs. 80 or 90% of our members, they want to work 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, go help their kids with their ballpark, help their daughter with the Girl Scouts. But when you're working for a company, I mean, we don't control that. How do we work together? That's the question we got to work with you, our employer, through Impact, through our major general contractors, and they know it too. They know the more you work, the productivity goes down, accidents go down. But as individual groups, it's hard for us to control. It ends up being an owner thing and they don't seem to care, in my opinion.
It is. And I would agree with that. We hear you have to maintain safety, but you have to beat the schedule. Beat the schedule. I was recently told, we don't care what your price is, just beat the schedule. And I finally said, listen, we're not going to make that schedule. You'll have to find someone else. We don't have the people, nor are we going to work these people those hours. I think there's beginning to be some eye-opening in the industry. It hasn't gone anywhere near far enough because, like I said, I was just told all we care about is schedule. And oh, by the way, you have to be safe as you do it, and they demand more and more. I think it's going to take really a joint voice at some point in time that the trades and the contractors that employ them stand up and say this is enough. There needs to be some sanity here. I wish I had the right answer. Maybe there's a political element to look at when some sort of OSHA type initiative. I wish I had the perfect answer. I think it's beginning to be recognized more, but I still believe that these owners right now, especially in the data world, it's crazy. They care about one thing, and that's turning on those computers. And sadly, workers have become a commodity. We'll get more. So I wish I had the right answer, but I know it's something I think for Impact as an organization, we probably need to start to really talk about this. What do we do? Because then the other part of the argument is, well, the non-union would step in and do it. So I wish I had the right answer. I really do.
Pete,
So,
I know we're getting close. Go ahead. I know we're getting close on time. Nope, I was just going to ask. Go ahead. I'll let you take it on, Pete.
So, sorry, Wayne. We're getting real close here on our time. I think it's time we ask for any closing thoughts from our panelists.
Joe? Well, I'll start. I think that through Impact, all of our employers, that we in looking to the future, how we're going to continue to grow, maintain our jurisdiction, that we can't be afraid of AI. We can't be afraid of the changes, the innovations that are taking place in the construction industry. It's our job, between our unions, our signatory employers, to train our people, make sure that they're ready to man the new technology changes that are happening in the industry. And if we do that, we keep our training, keep our safety training, work with our employers so that they can be more competitive and we can reach out. We don't have to worry about what's going on. We hear we're going to have AI, things are going to take jobs. We're going to have fewer jobs. There may be, we're already seeing it, where they're fabricating structural steel for big sections for bridges instead of putting up piece by piece, setting it one time. We just have to be prepared, make sure we know how to do it, make sure our employers have the skills, and we're going to compete, and the iron workers, I think, will be, and our employers will be strong in the future. We just got to stay vigilant.
We've been in existence since 1896. We've come so far, and we can never be satisfied with where we came. We just got to keep on proving, try and achieve that year where no one has a fatality, minimize these disabling injuries. And we think we owe it to our members, the contractors owe it to our employees. And the collective bargaining agreement is a method to work between the union and the employers to come to mutual agreement on how to deliver that. But complacency and then resting on our laurels can't be a way to go. It's got to be, we're all in this together, and we're going to keep working to achieve that. Everyone goes home intact and the way to go.
I will totally echo both of the previous general president's comments. Absolutely, 100%. Health and safety is a foundational component of why we came together as a union. In the first place, it just, I think I'm hit. Okay, sorry, my screen's on went black of the time. But it's important, as important today as it was 130 years ago, in terms of maintaining all the things that were mentioned over the course of time in this call for this family of ironworkers and our contractors. And it's a shared responsibility that we all got to work on going forward to try to get to that day where we have zero fatalities and zero incidents on the job. And other trades have done it. It's our turn to start getting towards that and having that as something we can hold out there as an achievement for our trade. And it's in that relationship with the contractors. It's 50 years ago it was a scrap. Now you got to think of it more as a dance. Like we're together on that, and we need to work together to get to that point where we have zero fatalities and zero injuries. And so just keep it up, everybody on the call, from representing everybody that I spoke to at the front end of the call. It's like the widest diaspora we've ever had on one of these calls. I want to thank you all for what you do and what you're going to do in terms of getting to that year of zero. Anyway, appreciate everybody's attendance today. Look forward to seeing you soon. And thanks again to Wayne and the whole team for putting this together, and for Pete to be our contractor on the call today. So,
Thank you, guys. Wayne, do you have anything you want to share in closing?
Well, I just wanted to mention, we have, there was on the comment related to the head protection, the Type 2s, we have the Ike Pritchett video, so we'll make sure we send a link out for that, where a helmet saved his life, and we'll make sure we share that. And I also can't echo enough, it's been an honor to be able to be on a call with you gentlemen today, and I really do appreciate all of your time. And you have many other things going on, and the fact that you took the time to spend an hour and a half to talk about safety and health in the industry with us just exemplifies the dedication that you have in helping to make sure our members do go home safe and whole every night. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my staff, Blue, Jeff, and Christy. They do a phenomenal job. They get spread all over the place. Blue's actually on a job site in Utah right now, and no grass grows under their feet with everything that they do and trying to help represent. And sometimes it can be challenging, and we can go crazy after each other, but they still maintain a decorum of professionalism that's unparalleled for what we do in the building trades and safety and health. And I can't thank them and everything that they do enough. So shout out to my team. Also, if you have anything that you want to share with the Safety and Health Department, this is how you can reach us, is the 833-355-SAFE or 7233, or the safety@iwintl.org. And with that, I believe our next safety call will be Wednesday, May the 27th at 2 p.m. We're still taking inquiries as far as anything that you'd like to have us cover as a specific topic or a presenter. And I got to give a shout out as well for our Impact Conference coming up in a couple of weeks here. We have a couple of safety related breakout sessions. Blue and Jeff are actually going to be on handling everything for a flying safe, building strong, what aviation and ironworkers can learn from each other. And then I have a breakout session with the auto industry to talk about some of the things that they've been doing with a lot of the auto plants going on. So hopefully you can join us at some of those breakouts coming up in Las Vegas here in a couple of weeks. And Jeff, I thank you again for this great idea of putting together our leadership to talk about this and to help kick us off this year. Can't thank you enough for everything that you did and putting everything together for this as well. With that, I guess we'll wrap up, and we thank everybody for being on the call today.
Thanks,
Yeah,
everyone.
special thanks to everyone, to the three general presidents for joining, Joe, Eric, and Kevin. As a board member of Impact, I want a special thank you to Joe to having the foresight of starting Impact. I think it's a great organization, and it is the tool that we continue to use to keep people safe. So thank you guys for joining us, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks in Vegas.
Our pleasure.
Thanks everybody for joining us. It was a nice experience for me. I haven't been on one of these.
Thanks again.
Good work, guys.
Pete, thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen.